All right, Kiss Army, welcome to the KissFAQ podcast. Thank you for giving us your time today and letting us into your head. I hope you don't do any damage. This is a Kiss-related podcast by the board for the board. We hope that you enjoy. Welcome to episode 96 of the KissFAQ podcast. I'm your host today. Well, there's only two of us here so far. Julian Gill, admin on the board. Joining me is, of course, Alex, BagBoy. Welcome back. It's been quite a long time since you've been available to be abused, so, always good to see you.
I've grown a beard since then.
Yeah, who is that masked man? So let's get through some of the news. Obviously, boarding. It's 9 o'clock on the West Coast, so boarding should be happening on the East Coast in Florida for all those lucky campers who are going on the KISS cruise. So smooth sailing to you all. Hope you have a blast. Hopefully you don't have a blast. Hopefully you have a really good time. And that it meets your great expectations. I can't wait, when they dock at some of the stops along the way, to hopefully get some word about how things are going, what is happening. It's always exciting. This is like a yearly gift for those of us who aren't attending, as well as all the excitement that, obviously those on it will get. Other news. I'm going to hold up a little flyer here. And I don't know if you can see it down there. KISS Expo is happening in January of 2017, and I've done the deed. I've signed up and got a dealer table, so I am going to be there. Tim is going to be there. We are going to be signing the book, and obviously the other one that, obviously, most of those interviews are conducted by Tim as well, even though he's not on the credit on the outside. If you look inside, you will see that he is a more than equal partner on that, and I will probably be selling the On Tour 73, 83 one that I've been working on for 20 years. So that's LA. There's so much to talk about with LA and the expo. Obviously, Peter Criss has been announced as the special guest, which is really cool. Love always listening to Peter and his stories, and he's doing a meet and greet of his own. I think it's 3 o'clock to 9 on the Friday, which is the 27th. The actual expo itself is on the Saturday, and he'll be signing there. And then on the Sunday, and this is nuts. I think it's absolutely fantastic. Some people are bagging on it a little bit on the board. He'll be doing a Los Angeles guided tour with the promoter and Peter. So KISS has quite a few LA landmarks, and who knows what he's going to do and how he's going to do it. I just think it's really cool. I'm not going to participate in that. I'll just do the meet and greet and the actual expo, and then head back up to San Fran as I'm driving. So something to look forward to. It'll be people's only chance ever to get Tim and me in the same place at the same time, to get, if they actually want to ask for a autograph, which I find very embarrassing. But I will happily scroll my third grade handwriting on the inside of the book for you, and so will Tim. So we look forward to seeing people. And Ken's going to come down, so he'll be at the table as well as doing his thing for the expo. So
it's a nice signature. I've got a signed copy of a book, so it's a nice signature. But I'll put it out there.
Did I sign one for you?
You signed that Gene Ace Paul Peter book for me, so.
I don't remember. I try not to. I avoid it like the plague. Sometimes when people ask me, if they ask me, I will happily do so. But if I don't have to, I try not to, just because I'm not a celebrity, and I'm not really comfortable with that. What other news?
Well, I'll leave it out there for you. If anybody is going to the expo and you haven't got these books, I think there's been a lot of publicizing for it. But if you haven't got it and you're going to the expo and it's I don't want to get anything else from Spencer's or Hello Kitty, go get the book. A lot of minutiae in there, a lot of fun facts. I'm still picking at my solo albums book and the Elder book. So if you haven't got it, get it, and you won't be disappointed.
And these are bang up-to-date printings as well. Through the life of a book, minor changes are made on the interior. When we get a bad review that says full of typos and all that sort of thing, we do try and fix them, because stuff inevitably does slip through, especially when you're not a proper publishing house. You don't have professionally employed copy editors who are just too damn expensive in this realm of things, and I do apologize for typos, obviously, but a lot of those are. And one thing, I don't know if anyone did notice, but I'll just put it up again. The cover has changed on the Gap book, so that's a story unto its own that I don't want to go into. So other news, yesterday on the message board, and hallelujah for whether it's Facebook, whether it's the groups there, whether it's the FAQ board, is the stuff people find. And someone found a whole bunch of pro shop video from KISS's 1982 Creatures of the Night press conference. And this is just the stuff that I love. I was just listening to the bootleg, which is the audience recording of the press conference the other day for the Live on Tour book. I wanted some information out of there. And this is just crystal clear. And it's the video, and you get to see Ace, and my goodness, he is a mess. I think one of the best things that comes out of this press conference video is him chirping in, because, why don't we go on tour and lose millions of dollars, when Gene and Paul are kind of talking about doing things the KISS way. So there's also a ton of MTV interview footage from that. I'm kind of piecing that back together right now, so that I've got a copy for myself. But go on to the FAQ message board. We've shared it on the Elder Facebook page. Other people have also shared it. It's really, really worth checking out, especially for those fans, people who are kind of who prefer the originals, the original makeup era. You checked any of that out yet, Alex?
Mm-hmm. I've seen a few of the clips, and it's been we've seen the pictures. We knew that it happened. It's exciting. It's always exciting when something rare comes out, or something that just hasn't been seen. And especially from that period of time, because in reality, the only thing you had from that Creatures era with Ace was, a few live, videos or pictures. That was like really, and not live videos. It was obviously lip sync. But so to have like an interview like piece from that time is fascinating, especially hearing some of the stuff Ace says with regards to the album that as many know, Ace wasn't on the album. So
yeah, and I love how he's saying on there that, we're doing now 50-50 of the solos, and everyone now knows that he is probably not one single note on Creatures. I know at some point there was maybe a little bit of a question about whether that was actually the case or not. But it's just so exciting. I mean, I would love to see this officially released, because it's the stuff that's up that is missing a few segments. That's only noticeable when you really put it back together in order. There's a little part at the beginning where Paul does the introduction of them, I guess, coming on stage, and then there's a brief mention of Neil Bogart that's just kind of cut out or either silenced from the board audio on that video. But just fantastic. The band doing the I Want My MTV refrain, which was just so 1980s, and I don't ever recall seeing that on MTV, and I don't remember if we had MTV in '82 anyway, so it's all a bit of a blur for me. But good stuff.
I think it was exciting because I haven't seen any like I Want My MTV clips with KISS, but I remember hearing them talk about it. I think it was in a commentary on Kissology, that they would film the I Want My MTV things and they want to use them, kind of a thing. So it was cool to finally see that. Go like, oh, they did do it, okay. Yeah, Tommy, I hear you're Kissology 4. You're working on Kissology 4, Mr. Thayer. So if there's something that'd be cool to see, if you could get a full copy, that would be really cool to throw in there.
Yeah, I'd rather they just do single volumes now, dedicated to each era. Put out a Creatures one, because obviously they did not use all of the... Maybe they couldn't get it for rights or for whatever. And that's why the fan, kind of the anthologies... I mean, Sagafu put out the Unmasked anthology years ago, which was absolutely fantastic from that period. But to take all those lip-sync performances from Europe, I mean, the Italian one is particularly good. The one in Spain, they do, Feliz Happy Navidad, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, kind of together. I remember doing something with that a few years ago. And just packaging it all up with the Creatures of the Night Pro Shop video.
New Orleans, right?
Yeah, which we all hope exists, but there is quite a bit of news footage from the tour that would be, maybe you could get 45 minutes, possibly, supplement it with interviews. But who knows, everyone has their own take on what they like to do. Anything else kind of off the cuff that you want to talk about before we do a little bit of topic roulette here?
I think, just as interesting, at that Mohegan Sun show, there was, Paul mentioning of doing another album, so...
I hope so. People have mixed opinions on Monster and Sonic Boom. I think this band doing a third studio album, and I exclude the re-recordings as an album. I don't consider that anything other than commercial. I think it'd be interesting to see where they go. I would like to see Paul step away from the production tasks and possibly get someone of his choice in, someone who makes it clear that, Paul has a vision, but to let them kind of tell him where to go with the sound. I think one of the biggest complaints with the two albums is that the production under Paul's thumb has not necessarily provided the fans with the experience that they're looking for in terms of audio. I think there's been a lot of really good songs on those two albums. Without a doubt, there are some on there that I would consider classics and possibly some of my all-time favorite songs. Long Way Down, particularly off Monster, jumps out at me, and Say Yeah off Sonic Boom are just two very Kiss-like songs, and Long Way Down I just found to be very tremendous. It's in that group of songs like Nowhere to Run, which is just somewhat epic for me, but obviously that's personal taste. Very subjective, I guess. So everyone's going to have their own take on that. So what do you think on that? Should Paul release the reins, or?
I think so. I remember reading a biography on a guy, and he made mention of a book company not having a publisher, and saying a publisher, I think music is produced. It's like going to the dentist. They'll polish, they'll fill, kind of a thing. And I think that's the thing with Paul is like I feel like Paul doing the album, it's like doing dental work on yourself. But it's like, no, go get a dentist. Let somebody come in who knows best on how to polish up the album. If there's any gaps that need to be filled or anything, or take anything out if there's like a cavity. And I think that's what KISS needs. Let Paul, let him pick the producer, but get somebody that is going to make a good album. And, hopefully, I'm not trying to say Paul is a control freak by any means, but at least allow that producer to be able to do his job. Let him be able to say, this is what I think it should sound like, and go from there. And hopefully not have the situation with Bruce Fairbairn with the, Bruce would leave and he'd go change that mix and stuff. So I hope to do a new album. Like you said, there's a few on Sonic Boom I really love. Yes, I know. Gosh, I wish they'd play it in concert. It's got a very 70s sound to it, and that one came out great. And then a couple others I would have done without. Same thing with Monster. I agree, Long Way Down's one of my favorites off the album. Long Without It This Road, I do like that one by Tommy, and then there's a few I do without, and I think that's where it's like, all right, Paul, let's get someone to come in and be able to take control.
Yep, and record a lot of stuff. I mean, I would like, if it's going to be like that, Eddie Kramer, engineer, rather than producer. Obviously, that's a little bit of a slight on Eddie because he does a hell of a lot behind the board, but he is more on the engineering side of capturing. I think everyone can, especially when we talk about KISS producers, that, Bob Ezrin is a producer, and much, much more maestro. I mean, he will take you and, just go and take that material and do something else. Eddie knows how to capture the sound of KISS. He knows how to capture the classic vibe of KISS. When was the last time he worked with them? What was it, Alive 3, I think, which is less than a stellar, kind of sonic experience. But if you go back to Love Gun, Rock and Roll Over, and you want to get the classic vibe, well, that to me would kind of be a no-brainer. Jeff Glicksman, would be another good one. I don't think I would go with any of the modern or postmodern apocalyptic producers, the Bob Rocks, the any of the guys who worked with Metallica or Megadeth. None of them. I'd say keep it in the wheelhouse of what Kiss has been comfortable with in the past. Obviously, the studio side of Alive 2 was Kiss with Eddie Kramer. The Love Gun album was Kiss with Eddie Kramer, and Rock and Roll Over, which to me is the ultimate sounding Kiss album, was Eddie Kramer. So,
yeah, I would say if they had to get a different guy to do a producer, be a producer, who I think could probably do a good job, would be Todd Rundgren. He did an album called Arena a couple years ago, and it had a very kind of classic rock sound to it.
Yeah, and a lot of these guys who've been, Rundgren's been around donkey's years, are doing really good stuff. Obviously, Bob Ezrin is doing fantastic work still with Deep Purple. I mean, give those albums a listen, and you'll know that he's still very much in the picture. But who is Paul going to most be comfortable working with? Who is Gene, and Eric and Tommy, as well. It's not just about Paul. And who's going to have the balls to stand up and say, guys, this is really not working. This does not sound right. Well, can Paul let go of that? And I hope he would and could, and I hope they would record, at least an album and a half worth of material so that they've got something in the can for, say, Record Store Day, and actually celebrate that properly before, the end of their time. And then also record an album's worth of demos that have been completed, that they, get it all done. Paul, get creative. Go in there. Let Gene record some of Gene's weird stuff. Record, Eric's Moby Dick. Record Tommy's, well, I can't think of a solo instrumental piece. Let it all go. And just celebrate yourself, but let someone else be the guiding force and focus on what you need to focus on, which may just be getting Gene to not bring the backbone slip back into any songs.
Oh, out of the frying pan into the fire.
Hey, it's Kiss, So,
it is.
So, I if I hear any of those kind of funny sorts of lyrics, it's Kiss. So I
agree. And I'm trying to think. Mentioning of like doing the albums like that. I recall I was reading. I have a coworker, and she's playing Stevie Nicks. And I think Stevie Nicks, she had like an album come out not too recently. And I guess it was like somebody, like a producer, somebody that's very close with her, had said, "Hey, you got a lot of demos up on YouTube. I know not the greatest quality." And she like went in and just shelled out, a few songs, and a full album's worth of songs, and did an album. I don't know how it's doing or anything, but I thought, like you said, that whole concept, like that's such a great concept.
Well, as long as you can accept as a classic rock artist or as anything that you're not really going to sell. Simple as that. Accept it out of the gate that you are not going to be getting millions of sales like you did in your heyday, that you are probably going to be scraping onto a Billboard chart. You can probably get into the top 10 with less than 10,000 sales, in a week. That the market is not what it was, but that you're not doing it for the market anymore. You're doing it to make a core of very long-term and very dedicated fans happy. This is goodwill more than anything, and maybe tax write-offs for the losses that they incur with studio time. You're doing it because you still want to create music. That has to be the number one reason why you pick up a guitar on any day, that you want to be creative, that you want to express something, that there is something that has inspired you in your daily life. And people mock Paul mercilessly about some of the things that he tweets, but those are the things that he sees that resonate with him on a daily basis. A song can come from anywhere. So, be creative. That's the thing that I'm more interested in at this point, that I want to see Kiss continue to be creative, whether they're wearing the grease paint, whether they're not, whether they're touring as a band collectively, or whether Gene Simmons is saying, I want to go out and put on my black leather coat or my silly thing, and I want to play See You Tonight with an acoustic guitar, and look like he did back in Bullfrog Beer, or you see some of those really early shots of him just holding an acoustic. I just want them to be creative, but to also enjoy it. So if he's not having fun, or any of them are not having fun, don't make an album. Simple as that. don't do it. If they're happy to just continue doing the kind of cookie cutter put on the show, well, that show is going to be new to someone everywhere, even if it makes the diehards apoplectic.
Yeah, exactly. I agree. I want them to be happy, and if they're looking for a hit song, I was talking with two of the guys that work with her in bands here in town, and we were just talking about the stuff that's on the radio now. If you look at the songwriting credits, it's like 10 people on one song and stuff.
Yeah.
And I'd rather have KISS with the few guys, and if they have a co-write by somebody, than to see that it took 10 people to write one song.
Yeah,
so.
I don't have any problem with co-writes. I wouldn't personally have any problem if they kind of did the Bon Jovi thing and went cross-genre like Def Leppard also did. They went into a little bit of country. I mean, if you listen to Mistake, that demo that surfaced a few years ago, there has been some slide guitar slipping in. So I mean, where do they want to go? What do they want to work with their guitar? Or does Paul, who's got a pretty good guitar collection, I believe, especially when you've seen some of the guitar porn he shared of those Les Pauls, does he have a song that he wants to use a particular guitar on? And at this point, I don't think I would even be offended if he had maybe Evan doing a little bit of guitar, and the same goes for Nick. And Sophie sings. I don't care if they want to bring their families in, if that's what it takes to get them motivated. Well, the number of KISS fans who post stuff about the kids and their side projects, and look what Evan is doing right now with the KISS Cruise. I believe the Dives are there. I haven't listened to them because I'm one of those people who really likes to separate the parents from the children and not follow the kids. But to each their own. So again, there's a whole lot of different ways of looking at it, and who knows, maybe they've got a completely different plan of their own of how they want to do it. They've certainly, we're just armchair quarterbacks here, just talking about a, kind of silly different ways of looking at it. So why don't we reach into the bag for topic roulette? And Daniel, we're thinking of you. So. Oh, there we go. Pick an MVP for each of the studio albums. And these topics were ones that have been kicked around on the board. We've seen people talking about them, and have looked for a little bit of inspiration that we can just quickly go through some of these. Boom, let's go. KISS MVP.
I'd have to go with I go with Paul Stanley on that one. I like his vocals. I think of Strutter just when it starts off the bat, and it just kind of opens up the album, and I think it kind of got the ball rolling on that album. So Paul for the first album for me.
Yeah, that's a tough one because I'm thinking Deuce, and I can't remember where it falls on the album right now off the top of my head, but I think Paul Stanley, without a doubt, does majority of the vocals, performances fantastic. And the songs, but it's so hard to separate any of them on that first album because it's such a piece of magic. So, Hotter Than Hell.
I'd have to go Ace with his songwriting, Strange Ways, Parasite.
Yep.
I don't know how much he did with Coming Home, but seeing a Paul Stanley Ace for the co-write. I think Parasite's a classic off that album, and so I'd go with Ace.
Yep, I'm with you. Ace, the songs Parasite. Simply on the strength of Parasite and my love of that song. I mean, there's a lot of good stuff on there, but the Coming Home stuff. Ace and Paul. I mean, we were just talking about a possibility of a new studio album by KISS. I don't want Ace back in the band. I don't think Ace will be back in the band ever, and I wish people would just let it go. Ace is doing fine for himself, but wouldn't it be nice after the Fire and Water video of their little reunion for them to sit down and maybe do a song together, either for Ace's album or for a new KISS album, like Coming Home. What a way to finish it all off, guys. That would be really, really cool. Dress to Kill.
I'd have to go with I think Paul again, with just the songs that he brought to the album. Anything for My Baby, Come On and Love Me. I know I Love All the Cam was an earlier piece from the Wicked Lester days, but I just always think those songs are kind of always on my phone from Just to Kill. So to give Paul that one again.
Yeah, I'm going to go with you. We know a lot of these songs were fast and not finished, but Paul's are. I think the quality is better on Paul's songs. I can't go with Ace because there's just not enough lead guitar that really permeates throughout the album. Gene's stuff is decent. So, next, Mark's favorite album, Destroyer.
Let's see. I guess for me, I'll give it to Peter. I'll give this one to Peter.
Get out of my head.
I'll give it to Peter with Beth. It helped get them more exposure and everything with that. And whether Peter wrote part of the song or the whole song, or they just put his name on it, you know what? He sang it, and it's a classic. I mean, even the fact that KISS, still, I think they performed a little bit on the current tour they just did, so the Freedom to Rock tour. So,
yep.
If it was a crappy song that nobody liked, if I was in a band and the guy wasn't in the band, I wouldn't play it again. But clearly, it was a hit. So I'll give Peter Destroyer.
I would have to make the MVP of this album Bob Ezrin, but if we're talking about the players, I am going to give it to Peter Criss because of the bleeding he did for the band to get his performance captured. And that, I go from it from a drumming perspective rather than a Beth perspective. Yes, Beth also saved the band's backside. It was the song that really transformed them. But, Peter really stepped up, and he worked, and we've heard from Bob in interviews, and from Peter in interviews, and from the other band members. I don't think they ever say anything bad or derogatory towards Peter on this album in particular. So everyone recognizes how the untrained musician really had to rise to it. Oh, there you are. Rise your heart. To really give a performance that is their definitive studio album. And that, again, is a little bit subjective, but, there you go. Rock and Roll Over.
I'd have to go with, I'm going to go with Gene on this one. Just because I really like Gene's songs off this album, though I will say, do you like Mr. Speed? And I guess she says, if we go besides just the players, Eddie Kramer for his production work on the album. It's a great sounding album. I think it was one of the overrated albums that I said on a few months back, but it still is a classic. And
I think on Rock and Roll Over, the MVP is just everyone on this. It's Ace's guitar is unbelievable. His solos, they're just, do a binky solo, All right, moving on to Love Gun.
I've got to give Paul Stanley guitar work credit on I Stole Your Love.
Okay. Yeah, it's hard not to.
And just the songs, I Stole Your Love, Love Gun, classics.
Yeah, this is a tough one for me. Had they not put Then She Kissed Me on this, then I would probably go with Paul. Had they not put, Almost Human on, then I'd probably go for Gene. But with Shock Me, I've got to make Ace. This is Ace at his height. Just the guitar, him finally breaking out and putting, a lead vocal on. That, to me, I love I Stole Your Love, by the way. But Shock Me wins it for the Ace man on this. Alive 2, the studio side.
I gotta give Gene. I really like Gene's songs. Rockin' in the USA, Larger Than Life. I guess I give credit to Bob Kulick too for his guitar work on those songs. So Bob Kulick.
Yeah, Bob takes it on that. I'm gonna actually give it to the absentee Ace because of Rocket Ride, which again, for the same reasons that I gave him Love Gun with Shock Me, is that I'm sorry, but Rocket Ride is greater than Larger Than Life, is greater than Rocking in the USA, is greater than Any Way You Want It or All American Man, by far, in my opinion. So, let's go to You want to do the solos or just the Kiss ones?
I'm gonna.
What a point! What a point! Who's the MVP of each solo album? Yeah, that makes sense, doesn't it?
Who played drums on Peter's album?
All right, Dynasty.
Ace. I like all. I mean, I know he covered 2000 Man, but he really made that song much better than what the Rolling Stones had it. Sorry to any Rolling Stones fans. And Save Your Love and Hard Times are just, he was really coming out with his writing skills, at least on that album. And I think I'd give him that. And his guitar work, too. That solo on I Was Made for Loving You. Classic.
Yeah, it gets tough now. I got to go with Ace strictly for the same reasons as the last two. Is Save Your Love is one of my all-time favorite Kiss songs. And Gene's stuff's actually good on this. As I think about it more, as the years go by, Charisma is a stunning song, but Save Your Love, and that's no slight on Paul. And I Was Made and Sure Know Something and Magic Touch are fantastic songs, but Save Your Love is just a great rock ballad. Actually not a ballad, just don't really know how to describe it, but it's a really nice song, man. Unmasked, and I'll go first on this because it's Paul Stanley. Because Ace's stuff now starts to decrease in quality for me, as much as I do, still appreciate the number of contributions that he's making. Paul's stuff, on the other hand, Shandy, yeah, it's not one of my favorite songs, but it's different. Tomorrow, not one of my favorite songs, but it's different. He's trying to branch out, he's trying to mature, he's trying to grow, and then he'll throw What Makes the World Go Round at you and show that you're still rocking, and then he throws in a pretty kind of throwback to, I guess, R&B with Easy As It Seems, with the backbone on there is, very out of the Kiss sort of style. So Paul Stanley on there for me. You?
I'm going to go with Tom Harper on bass on Shandy. No, just kidding. I guess I'll throw credit towards Anton Fig for coming in, though, and doing the drums on those albums. Obviously Dynasty and Unmasked. And I think, just like you mentioned, just those different style of songs that Paul came in with. I give Anton credit for being able to be the go-to guy to play the drums on those different styles and so forth. So we'll give it to Anton Fig.
Yeah, right on. A lot of respect to Anton for what he did. Excuse me, gotta grab my phone. Never leave your phone behind your computer. Sorry. See, now you were distracted. Now Nope, that was Daniel. Sorry, Daniel. Yes, indeed. We'll have to check our times at this time of year next year. What the hell was I saying? But okay, let's go on to the Elder.
We were talking about Anton Fig.
Oh yeah, Anton. Yeah. Coming in and doing those two albums, and I'm not going to say it's exceptional drum work. It's solid. It's not too far off kind of Peter, but I guess the drummers are all going, well, he doesn't know anything about drumming. No, and I don't. So I wouldn't pretend to. Elder.
Bob Ezrin and Gene. I know some people love it, some people hate it. I'm glad they came up with a great concept. I think it was fun. I wish it got to be flourished more and not as much stripped down. That meaning, like with the dialogue being cut out, stuff like that. I feel like, you kind of get the basic story, but there's so much that was left out. But I'll give it to Bob Ezrin. I think it's one of my favorite albums, and I think he did a great job with it.
Yeah, and I don't want to give this one to Bob. I want to give this to the Peter Criss of the Elder. And that's the person who had to really rise above and work and suffer and really get out of his comfort zone, and that is Paul Stanley. Both on the guitar, which if you listen to the fantastic solo in A World Without Heroes, Paul had really come a long way melodically. He always had the ability, but I think being able to channel it with the guidance of Bob really comes through on this album. But vocally, without a doubt, the man suffered to create this album. And what he was going through in the creation of this album at a time when they didn't even want to, do an album, they weren't in a headspace to do an album, is just amazing. And no it's a minor miracle that they managed to have product to release. So as much as I like to give it to Eric for surviving his first KISS studio recording, Paul Stanley, by and far for me, the MVP. Creatures.
I'm down. It was a tough one. I really like Paul's songs. I think Eric his drumming.
Yep.
There's so many. I think that Paul for his songs, even Jane for like War Machine and Killer, is excellent. But Eric Carr, his drums on that album are just incredible. Gosh, I wish there was like more outtakes from that album just to have heard that sound. I wish they would have said like, we recorded 20 songs and we only put 9, but we've got 11 others in the can. Like that would have been killer. Just to, the production on that album is incredible.
There are, and it's really tough. I can't decide really between Eric and Gene. Eric is just so bombastic. Those are the ultimate heavy metal drums. Actually, it's the ultimate hard rock drums without really going into the too heavy side of heavy metal. But Gene's songs, and yeah, most of his have the input of Vinny, but I can't give it to Vinny on this one because he's just not on enough of it. So the demon's back on this. It's the return of Gene, but Gene or Eric. Eric had been in the band by this point, 2 years. He'd been in Australia. He'd had to go through the Elder, and they capture him definitively. When you think of Eric Carr and KISS and the drums, I'm more likely to think of Creatures of the Night, the studio album, rather than, say, Hot in the Shade Tour, which was pretty darned impressive as well. So, Eric, gotta make the call. All right, lick it up.
Do you want to include Killers?
Oh, yeah, why not? Let's go back to Killers. That would have, obviously... I'm just going off the discography, the wrong one, obviously, on Kiss Monster. Killers. Paul Stanley.
Yeah, his writing, Nowhere to Run. I'm a Legend Tonight's one of my favorites off that. And then Down on Your Knees kind of has an AC/DC feel, and I'm not crazy for them, but it's just a fun rocker. So, definitely Paul for those ones.
Yeah, Paul Stanley wins, just like I said about Ace on, Love Gun, Alive 2, strictly because of Nowhere to Run, which is just epic, monstrous. I don't know. Get me a bucket full of superlatives to throw at that song, because it's just absolutely fantastic. And something that I just found out last week, because someone was kind enough to post it, I can't remember if it was Facebook or wherever, might have been on the Kiss My Wax group, was the misprint on the back of the UK copy of Killers, which has Down on My Knees as the song title. Never ever noticed it, and I've had dozens of copies of that album. So it shows how much attention we spend with stuff where nowadays we go through packaging to find every typo. Back in the day, we didn't care. Okay, back to Lick It Up.
Okay. I'll give it to Vinny. He came in with the songwriting with 8 out of 10 co-writes on the album. I think it's safe to assume we know where he had his hand in. But he did a great job. And I'll give the credit to the producers, too, because they kept Vinny tame. But Vinny, and I think a tame Vinny was excellent for the group. With their songs and their solos.
Yeah, Vinny, without a doubt. He brings the guitar work, he brings the songs, he sets the tone, and this is the best Vinnie Vincent album, by far. Animalize.
That's a tough one. Oh, gosh, at least for me, I think my highlight of that album is got to be, and I'm positive it's Eric Carr doing the background vocals on Why the City Sleeps, and I think it's excellent. But then I like Mark St. John. I guess I'll give it to him for his work on I've Had Enough, Into the Fire, Heaven's on Fire being a classic. So I'll give Mark St. John an MVP for the songs he did perform on the album. Is excellent.
Yeah. knowing now what we know about Mark and what he went through on this album, it's very hard to not give him an MVP badge, gold star for Mark St. John, because he suffered and he was being dragged in so many different directions by the band, and really, he wasn't a member of the band in some sense. You know, he's just the wrong guy in the wrong place at the wrong time, ending up working on a KISS album. But there's some pretty good guitar work. It's dated. It sounds like it's mid-'80s. It sounds like he's a shredder. He's certainly no Vinnie Vincent. He's no Bruce Kulick. He's no Ace Frehley. He's kind of generic from that point of view of, I can play 1,000 notes. Well, you only needed to really play 5 of those with feel, and you could have left the other 995 out of it. So I feel bad for him, and obviously he's no longer with us and didn't have a successful career after the fact. But that being said, the guitar work works with the material, even if that material doesn't stand the test of time. So, Mark, that's a very long-winded way of saying Mark St. John. Then you get to the best album of the 80s. Asylum.
How do you say his last name? Jean Beauvoir? No. No, he's great. I'll give Paul Tears Are Falling, Who Wants to Be Lonely. I think all classic standout tracks. Even King of the Mountain. I will say I do love Eric Carr's drumming on the beginning. I mean, that's just killer, too. But I'll give... I like the soul on the songs. I'll give it to Bruce Kulick. Bruce Kulick gets that star. He gets the MVP star for his solo work on his guitar solos on Asylum.
Yeah, 1985. That was a tough year. Obviously, I love this album, and I really am going to have a tough time. But you have bands like AC/DC, Fly on the Wall. They're all a bit... They sound, these albums, very kind of similar, and they're both kind of got the same shortcomings. They're kind of challenged that they don't rise above what they're trying to be or what you expect from a band of their stature at that time. But every time I think of Asylum, I immediately think of that drum intro to King of the Mountain, and I think this is the last album where we really have Eric Carr free. Eric Carr really captured with the sound that had been established in 1982. But I got to go with Paul because of the songs. As much as I love Eric Carr's work on this, it's the songs and the vocals that make the song, even if that foundation makes them stronger. So I love Paul's stuff on this, even the cheese. Even Gene's cheese on this album's good. So, and Bruce's guitar is fantastic, but Paul Stanley. So, does this make me a Paul fanboy, as I seem to be picking a lot of Paul stuff?
Say if it's good, it's good. You gotta respect what's good.
Yep. Crazy Nights.
Ron Nevison. No. I go for this one, Paul. His songs are great. I'd love to hear have the Crazy Night demos come out at some point. But I think Paul's songs, though, I do like Crazy Nights. When Your Walls Come Down is one of my favorites off the album. And it shows the versatile of Paul. Again, I mean, we talked about this with Shandy, but you can look at the songs like that, and then the ballad like Reason to Live and so forth. So I'll give it to Paul. And obviously, because he kind of had to steer the ship during this period of time, the Asylum, Crazy Nights kind of period, he kind of was steering the KISS ship. So I'll give it to Paul.
I'll give it to The Run Out Groove. I hate this album. When I go and have a deep root cleaning at the dentist, I always like this album to be playing because it reminds me that there are things more painful than painful dental work. And Crazy Nights is it. Is there an MVP for me? It's Ron Nevison. He did exactly what he was asked to do, for better or worse. He attempted to turn them into something that they were not. He did a good job with the album. Simple as that. He made the burger to order. So Smashes. No, I can't pick. I can't pick.
That's not an MVP.
No one wants to be the MVP of Smashes. Hot in the Shade.
think. Yeah, I'll give it. Gosh, it's. I love Bruce's guitar work on the album. I do like a lot of Paul's songs. I'll give it to Paul. Silver Spoon, Forever, Rise to It, Hide Your Heart, Hide Your Heart. I guess I'll give it to Paul, mainly for the songs that he brought in. That I think when I look back, if I think of like what songs I want from Hot in the Shade to listen to, it's always a Paul track. I think he had some good ones.
Yeah, same here. Just off the first two tracks, Rise to It versus Betrayed, that to me sums up the whole album, is that Paul's songs just do have a little bit of that edge, even if Rise to It is a complete carbon copy of Cinderella. So, Bad Seamstress Blues or whatever it was. Always get it wrong whenever we talk about this album. But Paul's stuff is just a bit better, but Gene is on the return as well. So it's hard to say too much about him. He's turning that corner. Revenge, and he's turned that corner. Gene Simmons.
Gene Simmons.
I'm actually surprised I said that, Lonnie. This one's for you. Gene is what makes this album. As much as I usually say I prefer most of Paul's songs to Gene's, it's Gene being back in character. Gene finally finding himself in the non-makeup era. So, I'm not going to give it to Bob, even though he does a lot to make this album sound fantastic. The Demon. Doesn't sound like you disagree. I mean,
No, I agree. I just tag along with it. Just everything with Gene. I mean, the fact you got Unholy opening up the album, and kind of you mentioned like with Creatures being, when you heard the Gene songs, you're like The Demon's Back. I know obviously Kiss was not makeup, but if you just sit there and go, The Demon's Back, it was definitely Unholy. And I think even if you see like any of the stuff from the Rock the Nation tour where they performed Unholy, it was like definitely cool because you're like, yeah, I could see Gene in the makeup doing, if you said to go, what Kiss song from the non-makeup can you see Kiss do with the makeup? It was definitely Unholy with Gene.
Yeah, and again, it comes down to the first two songs on the album. You look at the image of the band on the back, all toughed up in leather. I can't see from here. Kind of unshaven, gnarly, gruff. That image singing "Take It Off," or that image singing "Unholy." It fits the Gene material better than it fits kind of the Paul strip club stuff, which. And all of Paul's stuff, it kind of, with the exception of Heart of Chrome, kind of follows kind of the Paul vein, whereas Gene's just works.
All right. Definitely. Take It Off always seemed like a Poison song for me, that kind of style. And so I agree, Gene. I get Carnival of Souls.
No, I'm going to go with MTV Unplugged next because,
okay.
Yeah, I wasn't going to do a live album, but this one's just worth seeing if we can quickly pick a MVP. Paul Stanley, MVP of this for me, because of I Still Love You and Every Time I Look at You. Those two songs, smack dab in the middle of the album, are just absolutely stunning. And I do monologues on this album every time we talk about it because of Paul's performance, but this to me is the definitive Paul Stanley vocal performance. So
I agree that I'm a big fan of him. I'm going to let Bruce Kulick just for his guitar work. Simply put, I think his guitar work and on everything was outstanding. Agreed though, Paul, and on those tracks, I Still Love You. I don't know how many times people might go like, hey, play what's the song that shows Paul Stanley singing? Other people go like, are they good singers? That I'll play that part of I Still Love You where he holds the note out and stuff, and they go, holy crap, you did that? I'm like, and stuff. So
yep, that just sends shivers down the spine. Carnival of Souls.
Bruce Kulick.
Yeah.
One of my favorites. One of my favorite albums. I give Bruce Kulick for his work, and I'll give Gene and Paul credit for, especially Paul, because I know that was probably way outside his comfort zone for that type of music to be writing and performing. But definitely Bruce for his work and his steering the ship on that album with Toby Ray.
Yeah, I'll agree with you because the guitars are the only things that sound good on this album. The vocals don't sound great. The songs don't sound great. The drums, well, the drums, are just kind of muted. They're not presented well in the mix. Bruce, without he's just on fire through this period as a guitarist. Psycho Circus.
Kevin Valentine.
Tommy Thayer.
They had outstanding work. No, actually, I'll give Kevin Valentine. So he came in, did the drums, and then was able to keep Hush on that. That had to be rough to be on the reunion Kiss album and have to keep mum on the whole thing. And he did a good job with the drums. I do think Peter did great on Into the Void, but Kevin Valentine did a great job on the other tracks, though. I'll give him that.
I declined to name an MVP for this album because it's just such a sad, missed opportunity for the band. One that I think they completely misread. And again, we don't know all the stories of the internal dynamics affecting them at a time, but I think if Ace, if Gene, if Paul, and Peter, or I can't remember which one I didn't mention, if every one of those members of the band had taken a look at the Kiss Army and the celebration that they'd had in the Alive Worldwide tour and respected themselves and their legacy more, that maybe they would have been able to come together and say, let's put aside the BS. Let's, get away from the you are under contract, you're an employee of mine. But obviously reality doesn't work that way, unfortunately. And as a result, you get an album in which you can give Kevin Valentine the MVP on a Kiss album. On the Kiss reunion album. It's just such a crying shame of what this thing is. And when we then get into Bruce Fairbairn and what he does the album, he's just another Ron Nevison doing his job, but I think he's unfairly blamed for how this album sounds. It sounds like the conflict that is the band at the time, so I'm not giving an MVP, even if I think Psycho Circus is a classic and has grown on me over the years. My tongue turned black for saying that.
I'll agree. I just got to throw it out. I remember when they were talking about the writing dynamics of Sonic Boom, which is the next studio album. They wanted to keep it in the band with writing. They didn't want any co-writes and stuff. And it's like, man, I wish they would have done that concept with Psycho Circus.
Yeah, I wish they'd taken those, the songs that Peter brought in, and even if they were dire in their mind, have tried to work on them like Bob Ezrin had worked on them and gotten him on board of, let's make this a Kiss song, Peter. Your name's going to be on the writing credit. Remember all those songs that they talk about back through the classic era, that they would give input to one another and their names did not end up on the credits. Why couldn't they have gone back to that way of looking at things and taken a Peter Criss song that they didn't think was very good, arranged it, helped him with that, and why couldn't Peter Criss have accepted that arrangement? I mean, obviously, like I said earlier, the dynamic obviously didn't allow that, but why couldn't they have gone in with a clear mission plan? This is the Kiss reunion album. This is how we want to approach it. Ace, this is how I want to approach it. Peter, this is how I want to, and find the center ground before writing a single song, before playing each other a single demo, to have come up with an agreement of how they would do it, not necessarily having every song credited to Kiss with an equal, quarter cut, for all that was worth with the sales of the album. It just seems so sad that they couldn't have said, let me do some work on this song for you, and here, I agree not to talk about what I've done on this song for you. This will remain a Peter Criss song. This remains an Ace Frehley song, and I think the other side of the coin is that Ace could have given some input to other songs. But, again, were they that dysfunctional? It's just, yeah. Sonic Boom.
Man. I'll give it to Paul. Actually, no, I'm going to give it to Gene. I'll give it to Gene, even though he had the backbone slip a couple times.
It's only one time on this album. It's on the next one as well. True.
I'll give it to Gene. for a guy who, and I got some reason. I mean, obviously, I like a bit more of the Paul stuff, but I love Yes I Know. It's got such a classic sound to it. Um, I mean, I remember like one time making a mix of like the '70s Kiss albums, and I threw Yes I Know into it, and it sounded great in the mix. I wouldn't, if I didn't know it was from 2009, I would have thought, oh, that must have been like an outtake from like Rock and Roll Over or Love Gun. But for a guy who was always going like, we're not doing another album, no, not at all. The market sucks. And then finally, I wonder what was able to convince him enough. I mean, obviously, I'm sure it was money and the deal and everything, but I really would like to know like what changed his philosophy to get him to be agreeable to do another album.
I like to think it was me bitching about don't let Psycho Circus be the end stone on your studio recording career. I like to think that in my head, but somehow I don't think that's the case. For me, Sonic Boom, I got to give it to Tommy Thayer. I think the guitar work on this album, and everyone's like probably sharpening their knives right now, but the guitar work on the album is fantastic. Yes, it borrows a lot from various eras of the band, and that's what I like about it. In that you can hear a little bit of, oh, that sounds Elder-like, or that sounds Asylum-like, or, oh, that sounds like something of Hot in the Shade, or, oh, shit, that sounds like Black and Blue. It's just that he's playing the role there. He is still not Tommy Thayer, member of KISS. He is Tommy Thayer playing the role of Spaceman as a member of KISS. So he's drawing from, Ace would do this, Ace would do that, and throwing it together and coming up with something that I think sounds, it's fascinating to sit back and listen to. So Tommy, here's one for you on there.
And I throw a defense to Tommy with that. I know a lot of people, and they're probably getting the knives ready to throw it at me too. They go, oh, he's copying Ace's style or whatnot. I was listening to an interview about 2 months ago of Dwayne Bailey, who was in the band Chicago until like the mid '90s. He was like in the '80s to the '90s, and it had to do more with Terry Kath. They were talking about Terry Kath, but they were like, "Hey, you sound like very, like playing instead of very Terry Kathish." I guess I could make that award. And they were like, did Chicago tell you to follow that direction and to sound like Terry Kath? And he was like, well, I was a Terry Kath fan and a Chicago fan before I was even in the band. So my styles kind of went towards that way because I was already, before I was even in the band, was kind of learning to play that way and kind of was going in that direction. And I think the same thing happened with Tommy, being the Kiss fan and stuff. Obviously his playing goes a little bit that way. So I just wanted to throw my 2 cents out there.
No, I mean, it's a really interesting perspective to kind of have for Tommy. He can probably play just about any Kiss song and sound like, well, when it's Ace, at least sound like Ace. I don't think, I've said it before, I don't think he does a good stuff on the Bruce stuff, but a good job on the Bruce stuff, or a particularly great job on the Vinny stuff. But, when it comes to Ace, he's certainly got that nailed, and it naturally comes into his playing. So you go back and listen to Black and Blue, he didn't play anything like that. So, Monster. That's tough. Do I got to go first on this? Paul Stanley. He's still guiding the ship, for better or worse. There are limitations, there are shortcomings that we perceive on this album, but I think the fact that after doing Sonic Boom that he was willing to do another one and to come back with what is pretty much a lot of really good material on this album from Paul. I think Freak, I just wish Gaga had been on that. Wall of Sound with Gene, Hell or Hallelujah. I'm really surprised when I heard that. Initially, I'm like, what is this? I just thought it was mediocre. But it's grown on me over the years. And again, as I said earlier on in the show, Long Way Down is what tips it for me for Paul. As good as Gene is on this, I think he's just becoming a little bit of a caricature. The Devil Is Me, with the kind of Gene Simmons Family Jewels voice, is not the demon voice. I don't want to hear that voice because it just sounds like a game show announcer, some demonic game show. And again, the Backbone Slip, that's points off. I'm taking away your gold star, demon. just for using that lyric again. Take Me Down Below, dreadful song, but I love it. It's just all the cheese that you expect from Paul Stanley, and Right Here, Right Now, the extra song. I mean, obviously Tommy Thayer is a participant on a lot of these, but Paul Stanley getting in front of a microphone when he knows he has limitations, that he has a changing toolbox in his voice, and being willing to present himself and to work on that, I think it's just very admirable, and I have a great deal of respect for the man for doing that. So, Paul Stanley, you are the monster.
I'm going to go with Brian Whelan, piano on Freak. Oh, just kidding. We're not going over personnel. No, sorry. People are going to be like, why does this guy keep picking all the random people on the album? No, I have to agree. Paul Stanley, Hella Hallelujah. I was on a 2-year mission, so I didn't get to hear the album until a little bit later. I got home in February of 2013. But Hella Hallelujah, excellent track. Like you, it took a little bit of growing on me. Freak. It's just a classic. It's got not like a Kiss classic. I like that the opening and stuff, but just the lyrics though, and I think it's like Matt Porter of the Kiss Room, and I think Ken Mills of Podcast are both giving that song praise too. I think it's Matt Porter though, just like almost kind of like it's a great like rallying kind of cry of a Kiss song. Long Way Down is one of my favorites off the album. And I even like Right Here, Right Now, which is I know it was a bonus track with the iTunes download, and it was on like, they did like a tour edition of the album that had the bonus track.
That's right.
And it's one of my favorites. And I think, like you mentioned, same thing with Paul. I mean, we know the changes in his voice, whether it's from over singing or just maturing as he gets older or anything. I'm positive he has to know. I mean, he's gone the voice, specialist. He has to know his vocals aren't what they used to be, and so, like you mentioned, and for somebody, if you read his biography, you kind of get a sense that he's very, self-conscious about himself, and so to want to get out there and to do another album and stuff. So I'll give Paul definitely the MVP. I agree with you on that one.
Yeah, and Paul Stanley, I mean, he's got an in-ear monitor when he performs. He's just listening to playbacks when he's in the studio recording. He's under no illusions. This is not a man who's delusional. He knows. Do you think he hasn't heard the criticisms maybe that people seem to like to so cruelly express online? And I know they're being strong in their opinion because maybe it hurts them on a personal level because they can't get that image of Paul Stanley in 1983, pardon me, or 1977 out of their head and out of what they hear in their mind. But it's the natural progression of anyone who's been in the industry for a long period of time, that not everyone has, control over how their body changes. And we hear, look at, Aerosmith, and Joe Perry collapsing with the Vampires, Steven Tyler falling off stage, people not looking like they once did. Well, so is the case with how they sound. And very few people are going to be lucky enough to be Ronnie James Dios, who are able to keep their full range. And even he, certainly didn't have. If you listen to him in 1980 versus towards the end of his life, there is a difference. As powerful as he remains, I mean, Klaus Meine from Scorpions has retained a great deal of his range as well, but still has to adjust his singing. Time is cruel. And then you get a person who says, "Screw you, time. I will call my own time. I still want to do it." Well, it's really hard to not respect that. It's fine to note it, but I think in some ways the repetition of the derogatory way of noting everything that is kind of declining on a human basis, it gets very irksome. So I'm happy to respect Paul.
Yeah. No, and yeah, I'd agree. And vocals change. I think of Dave Meniketti of Y&T. Check him out. if you listen to the earlier albums, and to even now, and he's done a really good job at keeping his voice in great shape, great shape. But if you listen from the first the Yesterday and Today albums to the Black Tiger, Mean Streak, and Rock Me Trust to the later '90s and then Face Melter, there was a change just naturally that comes through getting older and so forth. So, I'm just glad that KISS is still going out there. They're still doing shows. What I like, yeah, we love to have different songs in the set list and stuff, but the thing that someone like Paul still wants to get out there, and I'm sure he sees the negative criticism that comes from people, and that he's able to at least take it or cope with it and deal with it to go out there. I think it's awesome.
Yeah, you have to admire a person who's willing to turn off that negativity, and anyone who's read his book knows that he is sensitive to criticism. He admits it in his book, and you read between the lines in his and other books. So it's hard to not respect him from that perspective. And then look at Kiss Rocks Vegas and the reception that has had. I think has been overwhelmingly positive. I know there have been some criticisms about fast edits on the video side of things, but in terms of how the band sounds and how Paul in particular has found a comfort zone, well, yeah. And again, you can't go back. You cannot make it 1977 again, no matter how much you wish so, no matter how much magic is done in the studio. So you take something that's an organic performance that, we're still, it's the current release, so we're still listening to today. No, at least I hope you are. There may be some people who've filed it away already, and that's really nice. Now play Love Gun. There's hope. So I'd like to see what he can do in the studio now with his voice as it is and with the tools that are available to him. So,
and I think was the last track they did was that Japanese one, Samurai Sun, and I think his vocals are great on it. So, I'd like to see what he's got.
Yeah, those are fine. And what was it? The Venus and Mars. That was several years ago. So get out there, do something. So that was topic roulette. I've only got 3 topics left, actually. Yeah. So
should we save 2? Should we save 2 for Daniel since he missed us?
Well, I'm going to save the rest of these for him. So we've run through our MVP of the KISS studio albums, and I hope we didn't miss any, because you just never know. It's hard to keep track when a band's got a catalog, even when you've got your freaking website up in front of you. Missing killers. So let us know what your opinion is on each of these albums if you want. Who is your MVP for KISS in the studio? And it doesn't necessarily have to be, a member of the band. It can be the producer. Again, everyone's got their own taste, so we'd like to hear it. And some of the other stuff we've talked about, chime in on that. You can find us on Facebook, on the FAQ message board, on Spreaker, on iTunes. And if you listen on iTunes, do give us a rating and a review, because we do like to get feedback and try and grow this show. But for today, from Alex and myself, we thank you for listening, and we will see you next time. Thank you for spending time listening to the KISS FAQ podcast today. All sales are final, there are no refunds. If you'd like, look us up on Facebook or come over to the KISS FAQ message board and discuss the topic we broadcast today. Don't forget to rate us on iTunes, Spreaker, or wherever you've listened to the show. We hope you'll join us again.